Professor George Beck founded the Central Washington College of Education pep band in 1926. Beck retired in 1959 after 34 years at Central. Cloyce E. Myers organized the CWCE marching band in the fall of 1938. As opposed to standing in concert formation, Myers and CWC were among the first in the country to do marching and maneuvering pregame and halftime shows, shifting to concert band after the marching season. There is extremely rare marching band silent film footage of the 1939 homecoming parade and football game under Cloyce Myers. During World War II, band was suspended. Army Air Corps cadets did training on campus. Wayne Hertz organized the trainees into a 22-piece band and a 30-voice men's choir. With nearly all men in the military, regular CWC music continued with women's choir and lessons. Even during wartime, nothing could stop Central music. Alban Bert Christensen was hired as director of CWCE bands in the fall of 1947. A 1937 university graduate and Army band veteran, Christensen had been teaching band in tiny Genesee, Idaho, while working on his master's in conducting at the University of Idaho. Hertz watched the talented Christensen rehearse the symphony, stopping them frequently, grabbing his clarinet and playing numerous parts from the full score to demonstrate his exact intentions. Chris had the experience, talent, ambition, and personality. Hertz had found his new CWC band director. Christensen was also an experienced jazz musician, having worked his way through college with the Lawrence Welk, Harry Turner, and Ted Weems bands before enlisting in the Army. With a wife and infant daughter, Christensen turned down offers to go on the road with the Stan Kenton Orchestra. He was totally committed to education, not a life of one-nighters on the road. Central already had the department-supported Collegians Dance Band. Hertz recognized jazz and jazz education would become a critical part of the school curriculum nationwide, a huge recruiting opportunity virtually no four-year schools anywhere could match. Christensen was the best of all worlds, a highly skilled classical woodwinds and percussionist, arranger, jazz musician, and dedicated educator. The war veterans returning to school in droves under the GI Bill understood and respected the demanding but popular Christensen. All of CWC music grew at an unprecedented rate under the dynamic and hard-working Hertz and Christensen duo. For many years, Bert Christensen taught marching band or concert band and chamber band, jazz band, all private lessons on oboe, bassoon, flute, clarinet, saxophone, all the percussion students, conducting, band arranging, and more. Bert often reminded his students, being a school band director isn't a job, it's a way of life. The band toured extensively every year. Audiences were delighted and stunned when the CWCEans Dance Band appeared like magic out of the concert band to play a jazz concert between concert band sets. The chamber band, what today is known as the Wind Ensemble, toured 11 towns on their way to an all-Northwest Boise MENC performance in April 1957. This was the first ever All-Northwest MENC appearance for a Central band. It was a legendary concert Christensen called a highlight of his career, a literal triumph, with educators scarcely believing what they were hearing. Central bands would not perform at All-Northwest MENC again until 1975. Band under Christensen was very different from most other institutions. Chamber band students were also required to play in the concert band, where they were encouraged to learn second and third instruments, all with the goal of becoming better teachers. The concert band read extensively music for elementary through high school bands, plus the heavyweight band classics. What an education! School superintendents around the Northwest were quick to understand and capitalize. With baby boomer children filling the schools, music teachers were in short supply, band directors often earning double the salary of other teachers. In the late 1970s, Central Music took literally hundreds of calls from desperate superintendents and school districts searching for music teachers long after all available candidates had been hired, often before they had officially graduated. This scenario hasn't changed today. There is, and always has been, a teaching job for all Central Music Education graduates who truly want to teach. On his retirement in 1978, Christensen underlined proudly the names of more than 200 of his former students teaching music in Washington State. Two, Robert Panerio and John Mowat, were colleagues on the Central Music faculty. Chris was called back to Central through the early 1980s to assist teaching woodwind lessons. Twice cited as distinguished professor, he was awarded a long list of educational and band directing awards, including induction into the WMEA Hall of Fame. Bert Christensen would pass in June of 2004, age 91. After a national search, Dr. Stephen W. Allen became CWU Director of Bands in the fall of 1978. He had taught very successfully at the high school and college levels in Utah. A meticulous and extremely hard worker, within 2 years the band program had doubled in size. The Central Band recorded 3 LP records in 1979, 80, and 81. The first Central Band releases in 30 years. Allen announced his resignation in November 1980, leaving Central and music education the following June. Larry Gookin was hired as director of bands in the fall of 1981. The way Hertz moved Central choirs into the national spotlight in the 1950s and 60s, Gookin would do the same with bands the following 34 years. Consistency of instruction is important. After the retirement of Wayne Hertz in 1974, Central had 10 different choir directors in 22 years. Conversely, Christensen and Gookin represent nearly 90% of band instruction in Central history before the arrival of Louis Norfleet in 2015. All three would be quick to mention the tireless work of their assistant directors of bands. Those with 25 or more years at Central include Ray Wheeler, Robert Panerio, and John Mowat. Of course, others had significant impact too. 1981 through 2004 were in Hertz Hall for Larry Gookin, who should detail his own adventures. Briefly, in addition to 9 state-level conferences, the All-Northwest performances Christensen did twice, Gookin did 14 times. Beginning in 1995, Gookin bands were invited to 5 national-level appearances. Louis Norfleet became director of bands in 2015. The same high standards of his predecessors have been maintained. Marching more than 225, the Central Band program remains among the largest and finest in the Northwest. As it was at the cutting edge since 1938, it remains today.